Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 2023, 2024, 2025 forecast event. We are bringing together astrology, wisdom transmissions, ecological perspectives, indigenous prophecies, the knowledge written and encoded in our sacred sites, and so much more to provide you with an in-depth understanding about what will occur during these massively crucial next 3 years and beyond. So listen in here to gain profound new understandings, learn what you can do to be ready on all levels, and expand your perception of what is possible as we move forward together with courage and resilience during these catalyzing times. I am your host and the creator of this event. My name is Jocelyn Starfeather, and today I am thrilled to be here with Kedar Brown. Welcome, Kedar. Thank you so much for being part of this event.
Yes, thank you, Jocelyn. It's wonderful to be here.
Yeah, wonderful to have you here. So let me share a little bit about you, Kedar, for those who may not know you yet. Kedar Brown is the founder and director of Rites of Passage Council, an organization offering nature immersion and ceremonial encampments around the world. He is an internationally known ceremonialist, healer, cowrie shell diviner, intuitive, and teacher of psychological and spiritual awareness with over 35 years of professional experience. Over this time, Kedar has developed an effective and unique approach to emotional and spiritual healing by braiding together his depth of clinical knowledge of experiential psychotherapies with more nature-based indigenous wisdom teachings and healing methods from around the world. Kedar is a member of an international wilderness guides council, and he is known for his ability to blend many creative and expressive forms of depth psychology with more ancient methods of healing through vision quest ceremonies, sweat lodge ceremonies, rites of passage experiences, and personalized ceremonies and rituals in his work with groups and communities. So the topic of your interview today, Kedar, is the initiatory passage of descent and awakening. And I really can't wait to dive into this with you because we are in such profound times now. And we were just chatting before we started recording about the fact that we're recording this interview on October 31st. And you had mentioned that you chose that day in particular. So could you begin by sharing with us why this particular day for recording?
Yes. It's, well, first, let me offer some gratitude in light of the day that we're on to our ancestors that have come before us and that have also walked to the precipice of darkness, as we do both in the year that we're in and in the times that we're in. So this day, some call it Halloween or Day of the Dead or Samhain in my Celtic tradition. It marks this period of where the old and the new are separated by this period of darkness. In the old calendars, in the way that time used to be measured by dark, not by night, by day. And in many tribal traditions that still hold to that original cyclic timing of the year, this would mark the beginning time, the end of October. But it doesn't mark this beginning in a way that we think of, oh, now we begin with something new. It marked a threshold period of entering the time of year where we're getting into the darkest time of the year between Samhain or this day and then the winter solstice on around the 21st of December. So this idea that the dark time is where things begin. And I think in these times that we're in, I imagine they can be quite anxiety provoking and uncertain, and people can feel quite reactive and protective. And yet there's no avoiding the passage. As a ceremonial guide or rites of passage guide, we come to the threshold phase of the initiatory passage, this descent, where we have severed from the old ways of knowing, thinking, believing, identities, and we sever from those willingly or unwillingly. And the unwillingness creates the turmoil and the recapitulation of unresolved traumas that we all carry. And so we come to this precipice of this day in the year of entering the dark time of year, entering the dream time as well. So the word dark has can have a lot of negative connotations. But I always like to say the greatest journeys that one can have begin in darkness, in uncertainty, because we're asked in those periods of time to reach out to something greater than ourselves to help navigate this territory of not only the unknown, but the unknowable, in this way that by our own resourcefulness, our own intellect is not enough to enable us to make the passage. So there's this idea that in this threshold phase of humanity, that we must reach out for something else, something beyond ourselves, by whatever name or identity that it goes by. I'm thinking of Joseph Campbell now, who said that the greatest things in the universe cannot be named, and then the second greatest thing is all the names we give it, and then we fight about that. So
Wow.
this day of the ancestors, this day of the dead, is both a time of looking back, to feel some gratitude for the loved ones that have come before us, on whose shoulders we stand, and also to begin to turn ourselves to how to navigate forward, as we step in to this threshold phase, the discomfort with uncertainty. One of the things I was sharing with you before we started as well, this, as I looked at the title of your summit, and I think, what most people seem to want to know is what's going to happen. And the question itself disassociates ourselves from any responsibility to the happening. And that how we walk this road is going to be way more important than where we're going, because as
Yes.
an old writer, Carlos Castaneda, used to say that all roads go to the same place, they all go nowhere. And some will have heart and some will not have heart. And so it is really more about really being careful during these particular times not to get drawn into the turmoil and the projections of, and I'll just say this, projections of unresolved traumas, both our own as humanity, our individual traumas that we all carry, this tendency to kind of blow past those without any awareness and then project them onto, these 3 years that we're moving into. And then what we see is colored by what's unresolved. And I said that the conversations of navigating the territory of these years cannot be really resolved or comforted by predictions that take us out of the conversation in a very personal way. Speaking of the day of that, I have a friend who we've been in some conversations recently. And this friend was given 4 to 9 months to live. And so we started having some conversations about that, about death and about walking towards it. And we were saying, the illusion is that most of us walking around thinking that we're immortal because we don't really think about it. But yet the truth is, no one really knows when death will tap you on the shoulder. And therefore the question I think ought to be, how do I therefore want to live? Because I know where we're all going, whether it's these 3 years or whether it's 40 years or 80 years, whatever it is. The question is, how do we walk down this road together? That becomes to me a more important question than what's going to happen. Because I too can fall into those false sense of security around some idea of, okay, this is what's going to happen in our financial markets, our social justice systems, our world markets, all of these different areas that people kind of look to find their sense of security by having some sense of prediction. And it's like, I'm not an astrologer, but I do realize that even in astrology, the planetary influences are the planetary influences. That they don't decide what you're going to decide. It's like you can respond from this level of energy and consciousness or this one. But the energy and consciousness that we're dealing with right now is going to be the same for everybody. And so how do I respond to that? I think bringing it closer in to a more personal question is, how am I personally going to walk this road over these few years? And then what comes out of that question? As I say, the friend of mine that's dying, we really looked at that. We're going to have some humor about looking back at his life and some uncertainties about facing this. And then our conversation began to rest into that, which is, well, if it's 4 months or if it's 9 months, he said, I actually just want to have more compassion, want to have more forgiveness, want to be there more for my family. Like these things, he said, it becomes interesting when you're facing a death sentence like that things get really important. Like what becomes important becomes very focused. And in some ways, he said, it's not what I thought it was going to be, what was important to me, but now I see. And I think that's some conversations we can have with ourselves as we step into this threshold of change and uncertainty is, how do we want to walk this? And being careful not to be seduced into reactionary discourse, as if somehow that's going to remedy any problematic situation. It just stirs up more reactionary discourse. And I say most people tend to try and work out their own unresolved traumas as if somehow that's going to do it. But so those are some things that come today with this particular day of where we're turning into the darkness, which is the dream time, which is also the time of the greatest possibility. And to be able to hold a space for, as we say, the third thing, the thing that we don't know. As my teacher Rocking Bear used to say to me, he said, to become aware of the things you don't know, he said, that can be learned. But being in relationship with the things you don't know requires a relationship to something much greater than your own mind. And so what is that for you? And that would be a question I would pose to listeners. Where do you put that faith or trust when being able to rest in some predictability is either short-lived or not sustainable, or gives us a false sense of security? And thinking now, I remember us having this conversation the other day about a lady by the name of Helen Keller. So most people know who Helen Keller is, and an amazing, wise being that could not hear or see or speak. And she was able to communicate when she said, around security, says security does not exist in nature as we understand it. He said life is either a daring adventure or it's nothing. And so there's that call to focus on what's important and who's important, and the responsibility of looking close in, because that's where change happens. In your home, with your family, with your kids, with your loved ones. yeah, it's just so easy to get drawn into the discourse of world turmoil without first starting there. So there's a few things that come up with this particular day of letting go of the old and stepping into the new. And remembering that stepping into the new is not an event. It's a passage.
Journey.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for these thoughts to begin here, Kedar. And you have such a unique perspective on all of this as a ceremonialist and rites of passage guide, and you guide people through these really profound initiations like vision quest ceremonies. And so I can just feel already from your words and from knowing you already that you have so much so much insight for us about this time where we're already in the unknown, and we know we're going to be going even further into the unknown. And we're going to be going further into, as I love what you said there about what we do not know that we do not know. Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, what are your understandings? What are your thoughts about how we can approach these times, how we can navigate into these times, and also just bringing into the context the fact that we've already been through these 3 years of so much letting go and so much change, right? And so I think it's important to think about too, how can we learn from that in how we're moving forward? So whatever moves for you to share about that, it would be wonderful to hear.
Well, if I could share everything I know, it would be, such a minute amount. And so, as I said before we started, hopefully the ancestors will say something through me that's adequate enough for the listeners to gain something. And with that, this isn't the first time we've been through such massive change for humanity. And so certainly the ancestors, especially those that lived well and died well, know something about navigating the territory of the unknown. The things we don't know, as you were saying. And learning not to hold on or hold loosely to the things that may have felt very certain in one's life. Because change happens. I mean, that's the old thing we say, well, it's the only constant is change. And so to hold loosely as things begin to shift and change and things fall out of our lives and space is created for the new thing that we don't yet know what it is. To find something that then can hold us as we move through that. What holds us? It could be as simple as circling with friends on a regular basis. To just check in. How are you doing? These are, how's your family? How are your kids? What's happening? So a very simple approach like that. The reminder that we're not navigating the territory of the unknown does call us to reach out to something larger, conceptually, philosophically, spiritually, than ourselves, than our own paradigms of thinking. And so what is that for each one of us? And how do we enter into a conversation with it? So it's not some abstract conceptualization, some distant place, but something close in, something that feels palpable and personal, and it's a way of having a conversation. This particular day being in celebration of ancestors, those are the places to reach, and I do, because of a lot of teachings around working with ancestors, this concept of those well in spirit, those that lived well and died well in our lineages, that they know something about the territory of navigating uncertainty. There's I'm reminded now of an old Irish quote, probably arose out of the potato famine when 3/4 of the country left. And there's an old Irish quote that says, "It is in the shelter of each other that we live. It is in the shelter of each other that we live." And so particularly in this time of dissension and disconnection and that one against that one and this group against that group, I think it's important to remember that it is in a form of connection and unity that we make it. And again, to keep it close in, I always have this thing where I talk about starting a conversation with the sacred by just asking the question. At any time of the day you find yourself with a space of time where your mind is not racing to do something that's on your schedule, is to simply and ask the question in light of these times that we're in, creator, spirit, ancestors, whatever name I'm speaking to, what action would you have me take now? And so when asking that question, I don't mean with your life, like over the next 20 years, I mean like now, like in this moment. And I remind people that the closer you bring in your response to that question, listen with the ears of your heart, what the guidance is. If it falls within your integrity, then follow it. It's of little importance that you understand it. And I say, as you bring the question in close, the likelihood that you'll understand the guidance that comes is even less likely. May make sense, but as I say, sense making is not for ceremony and ritual. That happens later. I have this understanding that ceremony and ritual is nonsense. So it's not for the mind to make sense of when you're in it. That's something you do next week when you think about it. So when you're in a conversation like that, or you're evoking guidance from the divine, what action am I guided to take today, this moment, this evening, this morning? And then follow it and watch what happens. It's what I call activating a conversation with the sacred, that you start to follow a thread of conversation, of guidance, of support, that can help navigate those territories. It doesn't mean that the answer will be easy. It might be a difficult thing. But it's a way to at least begin the conversation. And to do it more regularly each day, to start one's day, at least have that conversation be in there somewhere. The process of slowing down and being mindful, instead of letting our mind run things as it has a tendency to do when it goes unchecked. Of just breathing, slowing down, becoming still, and paying attention, and then asking a question like that in that moment. Another question for I think of as a rites of passage guide. The threshold phase is that period of going up on the mountain. And so there's the severance, the threshold, the return, the incorporation, the giveaway. The threshold is going up on the mountain and asking, praying, asking for guidance. But for the purpose of being in service to something greater than our own agendas. That we go up on the mountain not simply for ourselves, but for all peoples, human and non-human peoples, that be that big, or that we don't go up there with an agenda that we're just seeking some kind of blessing or affirmation for, that we tend to see anyway, whether it's there or not. But to really go up there and say, I have no idea. I have no idea what to do in this time. Help. That's a simple prayer. I have no idea. If all we can bring to the moment is tears, I think the ancestors understand that language much better than cleverly orchestrated words. But it is this it calls us to this place of surrender, which is very different than giving up, and more akin to opening up. That open our listening, to be able to be guided by something other than our own fears, our own personal agendas. So we go up on the mountain not for ourselves, but for humanity. As I say, human and non-human humanity. And we listen, and in the old ways of the initiatory passage, there was, and I guess still is to a degree, this aspect that there was no guarantee that one would make it through, that the passage itself could be fraught with challenge and danger and no guarantee of return. And so even in that way, we can see that we're forced to face our own mortality. This idea that we're not immortal, and that we should make death an ally, as many teachings talk about. And what does it mean to make death your ally? Well, it really means about how you live your life. Instead of being afraid of this thing and scrambling to make death an ally, means to live your life mindfully, with compassion, with awareness, with humility, with focus, with intent, to not waste your energies on unnecessary dramas. So it's this idea of allying ourselves with the end of the road, whether it's 3 years or 50 years, and begin to walk each day from that place. I'm reminded of a little, maybe I'll do it on this, at the end of our interview. I have a little meditation just came to mind that has to do with that, that I could guide listeners through. And I don't have any idea where we are, so maybe this is a good time to do it.
That's what I was thinking, actually. Yes. Would you like to guide us in that now? That would be wonderful.
So I want to invite all the listeners to get comfortable, to close your eyes if that helps, as far as eliminating light and stimulation that's around you. And imagine for a moment, a day will come when you only have 7 years left to live. And friends, the truth is, we don't know if that day has already come. So I want to invite you to take a moment and see, how would you choose to live and love in those 7 years, and take a moment to see that now. I'll pause for a moment while people envision that. And then take a breath, let that go. And then notice again what happens all by itself as you continue to envision and hear these questions and these comments. A day will come when you only have 7 months left to live. And you do not know if that day has already come. How do you choose to live and to love in those 7 months? And see that now. And then take a breath and let that go. And notice what happens all by itself. In the images in your body and your thoughts, feelings, and physical sensations. When you hear the words, a day will come when you only have 7 weeks left to live. And the truth is, none of us really know that day has not already come. So take a moment and see how it is you would choose to live and to love in those 7 weeks. And then take a breath and let that go. And once again, notice what happens when you hear the words, a day will come when you only have 7 days left to live. And as we know, the truth is we do not know if that day has already come. How would you choose to live and love in those 7 days? And take a moment to see that now. And then take a moment and let that one go. And then once again, notice what happens when you hear the words, a day will come when we only have 7 hours left to live. And if we could be in good health and be with the people we wanted to be with and be where we wanted to be, how would we choose to live and love in those 7 hours? And take a moment to see that now. And then take a deep breath and offer some gratitude for all the different stories and visions of things that was seen. What became more important as the time became predictably shorter. And know that a day will come. And we do not know if that day has already come. How do we choose to live and love today? It's not important that we somehow create the illusion that we'll live forever by not thinking about it, but just important that we live. And so my conversations, as you can now open your eyes, with my friend who's literally doing this in his life, with the life he has left, and having conversations about what becomes important. And so it's, when we think about how to navigate uncertainty, in truth, that's all we ever have. So the invitation to navigate with more heart, more forgiveness, self-forgiveness, other forgiveness, more intention and focus and humility. And again, not wasting our energies into dramas and things that are not necessary. I mean, these are the teachings I hear from elders and from those who are looking down the road of their own life. As they say, yeah, what's important gets really, really clear. And I think if we could all learn to walk a little closer to that way of being, I think we can navigate this road ahead with more heart, more faith, not more certainty. So there are no guarantees, but certainly with more heart and more faith. I think that's the message I want to leave with people in terms of navigating the road ahead in these years to come, and also taking those years to come and bringing it really close in, like we did in the imagery. How do you want to navigate it today? When you leave this conversation or listening to this interview, how do you choose to navigate the rest of your day from that moment? For a day will come.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kedar. This was really powerful perspective shift for me, certainly, and I'm sure for everybody listening. It is very, very interesting to see what becomes clearly the most important, and then other things that become clearly not important at all.
Yeah.
I
want to offer gratitude to the ones that I lean into that helped me say that. I had no idea what I was going to say, and I am as it the words are coming out of my mouth, I'm listening and paying attention. It's okay, whatever's speaking through me, am I listening?
Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you for opening, and as you said before we started, being the hollow bone to allow that to come through.
Yeah, you're most welcome. Most welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
Right.
So I would love to ask you, where can people find you online and maybe even on the earth, if they're interested in learning more about your work or working with you in some way? What would you recommend?
So I live in outside of Asheville, North Carolina, is where I am on the planet. There's a couple of websites. I guess the organizational website is Rites of Passage Council. So it's RITES of Passage Council, COUNCIL.org. And I'll give you a listing of different ways we can interact. The only thing that's not on that website is more of a one-on-one personal, the calorie shell divination work, which can be found from my personal website, which is my name, KedarBrown.com.
And we'll have those linked below, everybody, so you can easily find them. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, so look forward to seeing some of you down the road, hopefully.
Yes, that's wonderful. And you have a beautiful free gift for us as well, a free audio drumming story entitled Singing Stone. Would you want to say a few words about that?
Yeah, it's a story that was gifted to me probably, gosh, almost 30 years ago, through Stephen Foster and Meredith Little at the School of Lost Borders when I apprenticed with them. And it was gifted to them from an anonymous source, anonymous Native American source who did not wish to be known. But it's a story that's evolved in my life over 30 years, and as storytellers tend to do, sticking with the original plot line, but greatly embellishing and filling out the meat on the bones to the story. It is a story it's one of walking the initiatory journey, or this period of descent, and how to walk it into a life, into a name that is worthy of you.
Okay. Wonderful. Well, that will be very, very pertinent guidance for us at this time, it sounds like.
Absolutely. It's a fun story. Yeah.
Wonderful. Yes. And I've, seen some of your storytelling, and it's just really, really profound. Kedar brings this deep level of kind of, I would say, passion and insight and, really, really going into the depths in the way that he tells the stories. So I welcome everybody to go and get that free gift. You can find the link just below this video interview. If you scroll down a little bit, you'll see the link to the free gift as well as the link to Kedar's websites there.
And I will say there's another good story that I did the first time on video with you many years ago, called The Nubian Woman, which is another story of descent and return. And so if the listeners happen to be here at the very end, and email me a link to that one, I'll send you that one as well.
Oh, okay. Great. Great. A bonus story. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kedar.
All right. Thank you, Jocelyn. It's been wonderful to be here with you and everyone.
Yes, wonderful to talk with you as always. Thank you so much for this wisdom that you've shared today, and many blessings to you, Kedar. Thank you.
Thank you. Go well.
Thank you. And thank you to everybody out there listening. Hope you've received so much from this wonderful interview today. And I'll see you again soon in our next interview. Much love, everybody.